silence for a moment, not the silence of emptiness, but the silence where truth begins to speak. In that space, ask yourself this one question. When two people stand together, are they truly standing side by side, or is one quietly shrinking so the other can feel tall? We have been taught many ideas about partnership. Some say a woman completes a man. Some say she is his support, his backbone, his peace. But look deeper. These words can sound beautiful, yet they can carry a hidden imbalance. Because true partnership is not about completion. It is not about one being the missing piece of the other. It is about two whole beings choosing to walk together without losing themselves. A woman is not half of anything. She is not a fraction waiting to be made whole. She is not a shadow behind strength. She is strength. She is presence. She is awareness. And when she steps into a partnership, she does not enter as less. She enters as equal. But equality is not something that is given. It is something that is realized within. If a woman does not see her own worth, no relationship can reflect it back to her. And if a man does not understand the value of balance, no partnership can remain steady. Because imbalance always creates tension, even if it hides behind comfort. Look at nature. Balance is everywhere. Day and night. Strength and softness. Stillness and movement. None tries to dominate the other. They coexist. They support the whole. This is what true partnership is meant to be. When a woman stands in her truth, she does not compete. She does not shrink. She does not seek permission to exist fully. She simply is. And in that state, she invites the same level of presence from her partner. Not through force, but through clarity. And this is where many misunderstand equality does not mean sameness. It means respect. It means both voices carry weight. Both voices carry weight. Both hearts carry depth. Both hearts carry depth. Both minds carry wisdom. It means decisions are shared, growth is mutual, and responsibility is not one-sided. If one gives and the other only takes, this is not partnership. If one leads and the other only follows, this is not partnership. True partnership is a dance where both are aware, both are present, and both are willing to adjust without losing their center. So a woman must first return to herself, to her inner strength, to her quiet confidence, to her unshakable awareness of who she is beyond roles and expectations. Because when she knows this, she will no longer accept being less than equal. Not out of rebellion, but out of truth, and a man, if he is wise, will not feel threatened by this. He will feel supported by it, because an equal partner does not weaken him. She sharpens him. She challenges him to grow. She stands beside him not as a follower, but as a force that elevates the entire connection. Before you ask the world to see you, you must first see yourself. Before you ask for respect, you must understand what you are truly asking for. Because respect is not a word that lives on the surface. It is not given because you demand it loudly. And it is not sustained because someone promises it. Respect is a reflection. It mirrors the relationship you have with your own being. Many people step into relationships carrying a silent expectation. They hope to be valued, to be heard, to be treated as equal. Yet inside there is doubt. There is uncertainty. There is a quiet voice that questions their own worth. And this is where the imbalance begins. Not outside, but within. Because the moment you are unsure of your own value, you begin to negotiate it with others. To know your worth is not to become arrogant. It is not to place yourself above anyone. It is to stand firmly in the understanding that your presence matters, that your voice carries meaning, that your thoughts, your emotions, your boundaries are not things to be minimized for the comfort of someone else. When you know this deeply, not as an idea, but as a lived truth, your entire way of being changes. You stop chasing approval. You stop adjusting yourself just to be accepted. You stop tolerating what quietly drains your energy. And most importantly, you stop confusing attention with respect. Because attention can be given easily, even carelessly. But respect requires awareness. It requires intention. It requires someone to recognize your value without needing to be convinced. If you do not know your worth, you will accept half efforts and call them love. You will accept silence and call it peace. You will accept imbalance and convince yourself. It is normal, not because you want less, but because you have not yet realized that you deserve more. And this is not a failure. It is simply a lack of awareness. But awareness, once awakened, changes everything. To know your worth, you must spend time with yourself. Not in distraction, not in constant noise, but in stillness. In that stillness, observe your thoughts. Notice how you speak to yourself. It asks nothing more from you than to remain where you are. And for a moment, it can feel like peace. But look deeper, because not all comfort is growth, and not all peace is real. Sometimes, what feels comfortable is simply what you have become used to, even if it no longer serves you. In relationships, comfort can become a place where growth slowly fades. Two people settle into patterns, into routines, into roles that no longer challenge them to evolve. Conversations become surface level. Effort becomes minimal. Awareness becomes limited. And yet, because there is no visible conflict, it is often mistaken for stability. But true partnership is not built on stillness that comes from avoidance. It is built on movement, on learning, on the willingness to grow together. And growth, by its nature, is not always comfortable. It asks questions. It brings change. It invites both individuals to step beyond what is easy and into what is necessary. To choose growth over comfort is to become aware of where you are standing. It is to notice when you are staying silent, just to keep things smooth. It is to recognize when you are avoiding deeper conversations because they may bring temporary discomfort. It is to see when you are accepting less effort, less presence, less connection, simply because addressing it feels difficult. Growth begins the moment you stop settling for what is easy and start seeking what is meaningful. It begins when you ask yourself, is this relationship helping me become more aware, more present, more aligned with who I am? Or is it keeping me in a place where I no longer evolve? This question requires honesty, because sometimes the answer will not be what you want to hear. Sometimes it will reveal that both individuals have become comfortable in ways that limit the connection. And this is not a moment for blame. It is a moment for awareness. In a true partnership, both individuals are responsible for growth, not in a forced way, not in a constant pressure to change, but in a shared commitment to become better, both individually and together. This means being open to feedback. It means being willing to reflect. It means being ready to adjust patterns that no longer serve the relationship. And this can feel uncomfortable, because growth often requires letting go of old habits. It may require breaking cycles that have been repeated for a long time. It may require stepping into conversations that challenge your perspective. But within that discomfort, there is expansion. When you choose growth, you begin to experience a different kind of connection. One that is not based on routine alone, but on awareness. One that does not remain stagnant, but continues to evolve. One that allows both individuals to feel seen not only for who they are, but for who they are becoming, and understand this. Growth is not always about big changes. It is often found in small, consistent efforts. In choosing to listen more deeply, in choosing to communicate more clearly, in choosing to be present even when it is easier to disconnect. These small actions create a foundation that strengthens the relationship over time. But growth also requires boundaries. It requires knowing when something is no longer aligned and having the courage to address it. Because growth does not mean staying in every situation and trying to fix it. Sometimes growth means recognizing when a connection is no longer supportive and choosing a different path. This is where many hesitate, because leaving comfort, even when it limits you, can feel uncertain. But staying in comfort that prevents growth slowly takes away your potential. It keeps you from experiencing the depth that a true partnership can offer. So you must choose consciously, not based on fear, not based on habit, but based on awareness. Ask yourself, am I growing in this connection, and are we growing together? Because if the answer is no, then comfort is no longer serving you. A relationship should not feel like a place where you remain the same. It should feel like a space where both individuals are evolving, learning, and becoming more aligned with their truth. Choose growth over comfort in relationships. Respect is often spoken about, but rarely understood in its full depth. Many believe respect is shown through polite words, kind gestures, or moments of appreciation. And while these can be expressions of it, they are not its foundation. True respect is not something that appears only when things are easy. It reveals itself in moments of tension, in moments of disagreement, in moments where two individuals do not see things the same way. In a partnership, respect must move in both directions. It cannot live on one side and expect balance to remain. Because the moment respect becomes one-sided, the connection begins to lose its stability. It may still function on the surface, but underneath, something starts to weaken. Respect is not only how someone treats you when they are calm, but how they respond when they are challenged. It is not only in agreement, but in how differences are handled. When respect is present, even disagreement carries a sense of awareness. There is space for both voices. There is a willingness to listen, not just to respond, but to understand. When respect flows both ways, neither person feels the need to dominate. There is no constant struggle to be right, no need to control the direction of every conversation. Instead, there is balance. Each individual knows that their perspective matters, and equally, they recognize the value in the other person's view. But when respect is missing from one side, patterns begin to form. One person speaks, the other dismisses. One expresses, the other minimizes. One gives effort, the other takes it for granted. And over time, this creates distance, not always physical, but emotional. A gap that slowly widens, even if both remain in the same space. This is why mutual respect is not optional. It is essential. Without it, love cannot sustain itself in a healthy way. Because love without respect becomes attachment, becomes dependency. It becomes something that holds on rather than something that uplifts. To create this balance, both individuals must become aware of their own behavior. It is easy to notice when we are not being respected. It is more difficult to recognize when we are not offering the same in return. True awareness asks you to look at both sides, to ask yourself, am I listening fully or am I waiting to speak? Am I considering the other person's feelings or am I focused only on my own perspective? Respect also shows itself in the smallest details, in how you speak to each other on ordinary days, in how you acknowledge each other's efforts, in how you handle frustration without turning it into harm. These moments may seem small, but they build the overall tone of the relationship, and respect is closely connected to boundaries. When you respect someone, you do not push beyond what they have clearly expressed. You do not dismiss what matters to them. You recognize that their limits are not obstacles, but expressions of their self-awareness. And in return, your boundaries are also honored. There will be moments where respect is tested, moments where emotions rise, where patience becomes thin, where misunderstandings occur. These are the moments that reveal the strength of the connection. Because maintaining respect in these situations requires presence. It requires choosing awareness over reaction. When both individuals are committed to this, something powerful develops. There is trust. Not the kind that depends on perfection, but the kind that grows from consistency. You begin to trust that even in difficult moments, you will still be treated with care, that your voice will not be dismissed, that your presence will not be taken lightly. This kind of respect creates safety. Not a safety that limits growth, but one that supports it. A space where both individuals can express themselves without fear of being diminished. A space where differences do not break the connection, but strengthen it through understanding. So do not accept respect that only appears when it is convenient. Do not offer respect only when it is easy. Let it be constant. Let it be present in every interaction, in every conversation, in every moment where connection is tested. Because when respect flows in both directions, the relationship does not just survive. It becomes something steady, something balanced, something real. Respect must flow in both directions. There is a quiet habit that many fall into without even noticing. The habit of becoming smaller to keep something intact. It does not happen all at once. It happens gradually, in small moments. You hold back a thought because it might create tension. You silence a feeling because it might not be received well. You lower your standards because it feels easier than addressing the discomfort. And over time, you begin to shrink. At first, it may feel like adjustment, like compromise, like something you are doing for the sake of harmony. But look closely, because there is a difference between adjusting and disappearing. When you adjust, you remain present. When you shrink, you slowly lose parts of yourself. Shrinking is subtle. It does not always feel like loss in the beginning. It can even feel like peace. The absence of conflict can create the illusion that everything is stable. But inside, something begins to fade. Your voice becomes quieter. Your needs become secondary. Your presence becomes less visible, not because it should be, but because you have allowed it to be. And this often comes from fear. Fear of losing the connection, fear of being misunderstood, fear of creating distance. So you choose to hold everything together by letting go of yourself. But this is not strength. This is self-abandonment, and Driten's strength is not found in how much you can suppress. It is found in how clearly you can remain yourself, even when it feels difficult. Because a connection that requires you to shrink is not a connection that supports your growth. It is one that slowly limits your potential. When you begin to shrink, the balance of the relationship shifts. One person becomes more dominant, the other more silent. One expresses freely, the other hesitates. And even if this dynamic is never spoken, it is felt, because relationships are not only built on words, they are shaped by energy. And the energy of someone who is holding back is very different from the energy of someone who is fully present. To stop shrinking, you must first become aware of where it is happening. Not in a blaming way, but in an honest way. Where are you holding back your truth? Where are you accepting less than what you know is right? Where are you adjusting beyond what feels balanced? This awareness is the beginning of change. Because once you see it, you can no longer ignore it. You begin to notice the moments where you are about to stay silent, and instead, you choose to speak. You begin to notice where you're about to agree just to avoid discomfort, and instead, you choose honesty. And this does not mean creating conflict. It does not mean forcing your way into every situation. It means showing up fully. It means allowing your presence to be felt without hesitation. It means trusting that your voice deserves space. There will be moments where this feels uncomfortable, where expressing yourself may change the dynamic, where standing firm may create tension. But this tension is not always negative. It is often the space where a new balance can form. And if the connection is strong, it will adjust. It will grow to include both individuals fully. If it cannot, then it reveals something important, that the relationship may have been sustained by imbalance, not by true partnership. Do not be afraid of this realization, because it brings clarity. And clarity allows you to make decisions that are aligned with your well-being, not driven by fear. When you stop shrinking, you reclaim your space. Not by taking it from someone else, but by simply standing in it. You allow your thoughts, your feelings, your boundaries to exist without apology. And in doing so, you invite a different kind of connection. One where both individuals are visible, both are heard, both are valued. This is where equality becomes real. not in words, but in presence, because you are no longer adjusting to fit into the relationship. You are standing as you are and allowing the relationship to meet you there. So do not make yourself smaller just to maintain what is not balanced. Do not silence your truth just to avoid what is necessary. And do not lose your presence in the hope of keeping something that asks you to disappear. Never shrink to maintain connection. There is a quiet image that many carry within them when they think of partnership. One person leading, the other following. One deciding, the other adjusting. It may not always be spoken, but it shows itself in actions, in expectations, in the way roles are unconsciously formed. And over time, this creates a distance that is not always visible, but deeply felt. A true partner does not walk ahead to control the path, nor behind to be controlled by it. A true partner walks beside you, not to compete, not to dominate, not to depend, but to share the journey with awareness. This is where equality becomes real, not in words, but in movement. Not in promises, but in presence. Walking beside someone means recognizing that both individuals have their own strength, their own perspective, their own way of seeing the world. It means understanding that no one holds all the answers and no one is meant to carry the entire weight alone. Because a relationship is not a structure where one builds and the other supports. It is a shared creation shaped by both. When one walks ahead, there is often control. Decisions are made without full consideration. Direction is chosen without mutual understanding. And the one behind begins to feel disconnected, even if they remain physically present. Their voice becomes less involved, their influence less visible. Over time, this creates imbalance. When one walks behind, there is often hesitation, a sense of waiting, of following, of allowing the other to take the lead in every situation. And while this may seem peaceful on the surface, it slowly removes the essence of partnership, because the one behind is no longer fully participating, but adapting. But when two walk side by side, something shifts. There is awareness, there is communication, there is a natural exchange of roles depending on the moment. Sometimes one leads in a certain situation, not out of dominance, but out of strength in that area. And at other times, the roles reverse. This is not fixed. It flows. And in that flow, balance is maintained. To walk beside someone also means to truly see them, not just their strengths, but their challenges, not just their presence, but their depth. It means being willing to understand rather than assume, to listen rather than react, because walking together requires alignment, and alignment cannot exist without awareness. And this does not mean that the path will always be smooth. There will be moments where steps are not in sync, moments where direction feels unclear, moments where one may feel ahead and the other behind. But what matters is not perfection. It is the willingness to return to balance. This willingness requires effort from both sides. It requires letting go of the need to control. It requires releasing the fear of being less. It requires trusting that equality does not diminish you, but strengthens the connection as a whole. When you walk beside someone, you are not losing your individuality. You are bringing it fully into the connection. You are allowing your presence to exist without overshadowing the other and without being overshadowed. This is where true partnership lives, and there is a quiet strength in this. Because when both individuals are equally present, equally involved, equally aware, the relationship becomes something stable. Not rigid, but grounded. Not perfect, but real. There is no need to compete for space, because space is shared. There is no need to fight for a voice, because both are heard. There is no need to prove worth, because it is already recognized. So do not accept a position where you must always follow, and do not seek a position where you must always lead. Step into a place where you can walk with someone, not behind them, not ahead of them, but beside them, because only there can a true partnership exist. A true partner walks beside you, not ahead or behind you. A true partnership is not built on halves trying to complete each other, but on two whole individuals choosing to walk together in awareness. It is not defined by sacrifice that erases the self, nor by comfort that prevents growth. It is shaped by truth, by respect, by conscious effort, and by the courage to remain authentic, even when it is not easy. Let this stay with you. Know your worth before you ask for respect. Do not confuse sacrifice with love. Stand in truth even when it feels uncomfortable. Choose growth over comfort in relationships. Let respect flow in both directions. Never shrink to maintain connection, and always remember, a true partner walks beside you, not ahead or behind you. When these principles are lived, not just understood, relationships become more than attachment. They become evolution. They become balance. They become a space where both individuals rise without losing themselves. Thank you for your time and your presence here. Wishing you clarity in your relationships, strength in your choices, and peace in your journey ahead. Good luck. Because the way you treat yourself becomes the silent instruction for how others will treat you. If you ignore your own needs, others will learn to ignore them too. If you dismiss your own voice, others will speak over it. If you compromise your values to keep peace, others will expect that compromise to continue. This is not because people are always unkind, but because you have shown them what is acceptable. And what is repeated becomes the pattern. But the moment you shift this, everything begins to realign. When you honor your own boundaries, others feel that boundary without needing explanation. When you respect your own time, others begin to value it. When you speak with clarity instead of hesitation, your words carry weight. This is not force, this is presence. This is the quiet power of someone who knows their worth. And understand this clearly. Knowing your worth does not mean every person will treat you with respect. Some will still misunderstand you. Some will still test your limits. But the difference is, you will no longer stay where you are not valued. You will not fight to be seen by those who refuse to look. You will not beg for a place where you are already being diminished. This is where true partnership begins. Not when two people need each other to feel complete, but when two people already recognize their own value and choose to come together. Because when you know your worth, you do not enter a relationship hoping to be respected. You enter expecting it, and more importantly, embodying it. So return to yourself. Sit with your truth. Build a relationship with your own presence that is rooted in honesty and strength. Because the respect you seek in the world will always begin with the respect you give to your own existence. And know your worth before you ask for respect. There is a quiet misunderstanding that has lived in many hearts for a long time. It whispers that love must cost you something, that to truly care, you must give more, endure more, and sometimes even lose parts of yourself. It tells you that sacrifice is proof of devotion. And slowly, without realizing it, people begin to measure love by how much they are willing to give up. But look closely at this idea. Sit with it in stillness, because not everything that feels noble is true, and not everything that looks like love is healthy. Sacrifice, when it comes from pressure or fear, is not love. It is imbalance. It is the quiet abandonment of self in the hope of keeping something or someone. Love, in its pure form, does not ask you to disappear. It does not ask you to silence your needs or carry the weight alone. Love is not meant to reduce you. It is meant to expand you. When you confuse sacrifice with love, you begin to accept things that slowly drain your spirit. You tell yourself that it is okay to stay silent when something hurts. You tell yourself that it is okay to keep giving even when nothing is being returned. You convince yourself that your discomfort is just part of the process. But over time, this creates a quiet exhaustion. Not always visible, not always spoken, but deeply felt. Understand this clearly. There is a difference between giving and losing yourself. There is a difference between compromise and self-neglect. In a true partnership, both individuals adjust. Both individuals consider each other, but neither one disappears in the process. Because when one person continuously sacrifices, while the other simply receives, the balance is broken. And once balance is broken, respect begins to fade. Not always intentionally, not always immediately, but gradually. Because respect grows where there is mutual care, not where one side carries everything in silence. Look at your own patterns. Not with judgment, but with awareness. Where have you been giving beyond your capacity? Where have you been saying yes when your inner voice was asking for pause? Where have you been calling something love when it was actually fear of losing connection? These moments matter because every time you ignore your truth for the sake of keeping peace, you move further away from yourself. And the further you move from yourself, the harder it becomes for anyone else to truly meet you. Love is not about proving your worth through sacrifice. You do not need to earn your place by giving more than you receive. You do not need to tolerate what hurts you just to keep something alive. Real love does not thrive on your silence. It grows through honesty, through openness, through two individuals who are willing to show up fully, not partially. And this requires courage, because it is not always easy to stop old patterns. It is not always easy to speak your needs when you are used to suppressing them. It is not always easy to step back when you have been taught to hold everything together. But this is where true strength lies. Not in how much you can endure, but in how clearly you can honor yourself. When you no longer confuse sacrifice with love, your perspective changes. You begin to see that a healthy connection does not require constant giving from one side. It requires balance. It requires both people to be aware of each other, to listen, to adjust without losing themselves. And when you meet someone who understands this, something shifts. There is no need to prove your love through pain. There is no need to carry more than your share. There is a natural flow, a sense of ease that does not come from perfection, but from mutual respect. So do not glorify sacrifice when it costs you your peace. Do not label your silence as strength when it is slowly breaking you. And do not mistake endurance for love when it is only keeping you stuck. Love should not take you away from yourself. It should bring you closer. Do not confuse sacrifice with love. Truth is often quiet, but its weight can be felt in every part of your being. It does not shout, it does not force, yet it remains present. It shows itself in small moments, in subtle feelings, in the gentle discomfort that arises when something is not aligned. And still, many choose to turn away from it. Not because they do not recognize it, but because it is not always easy to stand in it. To stand in truth is to be honest with yourself first. Not the version of honesty that is shaped by what others expect, but the kind that comes from deep awareness. It asks you to look at your thoughts, your emotions, your choices without illusion. It asks you to admit what you feel, even when it challenges the image you have created. And this is where discomfort begins, because truth does not always bring immediate comfort. Sometimes it reveals where you have been settling. Sometimes it shows you where you have been silent when you should have spoken. Sometimes it uncovers fears that you have been avoiding. And in those moments, you are faced with a choice: to return to comfort and ignore it, or to stand in truth and grow. Many people choose comfort. They choose to avoid difficult conversations. They choose to keep peace even when it costs them their inner balance. They tell themselves that it is easier this way, that it will pass, that it is not worth the tension. But what is avoided does not disappear. It remains beneath the surface, slowly building, quietly shaping the connection. Standing in truth does not mean being harsh or reactive. It does not mean expressing everything without awareness. It means being clear. It means allowing your voice to reflect what is real within you. It means speaking from a place of presence rather than from fear. In a partnership, this becomes essential, because without truth, there is no real connection. There may be comfort, there may be routine, but there is no depth. When one or both individuals begin to hide their thoughts or suppress their feelings, the relationship starts to lose its authenticity. It becomes something that looks stable from the outside, but feels empty within. To stand in truth requires courage. It asks you to risk being misunderstood. It asks you to face reactions that may not always be easy to receive. It asks you to remain grounded, even when the other person may not immediately understand your perspective. But this is the path to something real. When you express your truth with clarity and calmness, you create space for honesty. You invite the other person to meet you at that level. And if they are willing, the connection deepens. If they are not, you gain clarity. And clarity, even when it is difficult, is more valuable than comfort built on illusion. Understand this. Avoiding discomfort may protect you in the moment, but it limits growth. It keeps you in patterns that do not serve you. It prevents the relationship from evolving. But when you choose truth, even when your voice trembles, you begin to break those patterns. There will be moments where your truth challenges the dynamic you have become used to. There will be moments where it changes the direction of your relationship. And that can feel uncertain. But uncertainty is not always negative. It is often the space where transformation begins. And within yourself, something strengthens. Every time you honor your truth, you build trust with your own being. You begin to rely on yourself, to listen to your inner voice, to act in alignment with what you feel. This is a foundation that no external validation can replace, so do not run from discomfort. Do not silence your truth to maintain a temporary sense of ease. Because what is real will always ask to be seen. And the longer you ignore it, the heavier it becomes. Stand in your truth, not to create conflict, but to create clarity. Not to push others away, but to invite what is genuine. Not to prove anything, but to remain aligned with yourself. Stand in truth even when it feels uncomfortable. Comfort has a quiet pull. It feels safe, familiar, predictable.